What's going on, everyone? It's Matt Deeks here with another video, and today I've got something fun for you guys. We're talking about my new Xenophase Assault build in Space Marine 2. This build absolutely shreds. It's got ridiculous power, insane ground pound strength, and some of the most fluid movement you can get in the entire game. I'm talking non-stop action. You're flying across the map, slamming into hordes, wiping entire waves, and barely ever touching the ground. The best part? It's got near unlimited jump pack uptime. You can chain slams, phase through enemies, and reset your jump over and over again. Once you get the rhythm down, it feels like you're untouchable. Pure chaos and destruction rolled into one build. In this video, I'm going to break down everything. The class setup, the perks I'm using, my prestige loadout, the weapons that make this build shine, and of course, the weapon perks that push its damage through the roof. If you enjoy fast-paced, high-damage gameplay, you're going to want to stick around for this one, because the Xenophase Assault setup might be just the funnest class to play in this game, all right? And before we jump into it, don't forget to drop a like, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment. With that being said, let's get into it. Okay, so let's start off with the weapons, right? So obviously this build is centered around the Xenophase blade. So let's get into it, guys. So again, the Xenophase blade is the new heroic version of the power sword, and it comes with specific perks, but we'll get into that in a second. So obviously you got to be running the heroic version of the power sword. So if you don't have that unlocked, you have to unlock that by getting the new credits from stratagem gameplay, okay? But if you have it unlocked, guys, this is what the perk tree looks like. Okay, so again, feel free to take a snapshot, but I'm gonna go into each one in a little more detail for some and a little less detail in other because they're pretty self-explanatory. But off the rip, guys, I chose armor strength. So if you have armor remaining, melee damage increases by 10%. Now again, remember, guys, when you watch this video, go into it knowing that I'm going for maximum damage, okay? Maximum damage. So again, the other option we have down low is perpetual strength, which is a melee damage increase by 5%. There's no strings attached to this. Again, I chose this one. I feel like my playstyle allows me to get armor back more often, and there's a specific class perk that you can put on that will allow you to get non-finisher gunstrike armor back. So again, if you pair those two together, you will have armor remaining. If you're lucky to be paired with a bulwark, then luckily you might be able to get your armor back every 30 seconds if they have that team perk on. But I'm telling you guys, take that 10% damage increase over the 5%. You will feel a slight difference there, and most of the time you will have armor remaining. Going forward, guys, Master of Offense. So after switching sword combat style, you deal 20% more melee damage for 5 seconds, okay? Then we have 2 perpetual strengths, 5%, 5%, so 10%. And then we have momentum gain. So each consecutive light attack increases light attack melee damage by 3% up to 30%. All right, so momentum gain here. And then we have skilled restoration. So when your health is below 30%, a power whirl hit restores 1 armor segment. Cooldown is 10 seconds. So again, guys, remember, not only do I have a class perk that gets non-finisher gunstrike, you can add that in. I actually didn't, but I'll go over that in a second, mainly because I have this one right here, guys. So skilled restoration. This pairs really well with this one here, armored strength. So you will be getting your armor back more often with power whirl hits. Again, your health has to be below 30%, so there are some strings attached, but this is a great perk to have for your Xenophase blade. Going forward, guys, we have kill streak. So after killing 7 enemies in rapid succession with a light combo, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back for 5 seconds. All right, and then we have hard target. So while performing a light combo, you take 15% less range damage. And going into the fun perks, guys, we have Power Rake. Now remember, the heroic perk is Power Rake waves are wider and deal 20% more damage. Okay, so remember that. You already have a 20% buff already. You're adding this on top of it, guys. You're getting Power Rake deals 50% more melee damage. So you're at a 70% increase just on Power Rake damage. All right. Going forward, guys, we have a bunch of Slayers here. So we have Majora's Slayer, 10% increase in damage. We have Extremis Slayer, a 15% increase in damage, and we have Minora's Slayer, which is a 20% increase in damage. I opted not to choose this one here just because you don't really face Terminus enemies that often, and if you pair it with an Auspex scan from a tactical, you're going to be good to go. You don't really need this, so I chose these three down here. These two are really good as well if you're playing like a standard relic tier power sword build, but for the Xenophase blade, we're going for maximum damage, so I chose this layout right here. Again, feel free to take a snapshot, copy it, and hopefully you enjoy this Xenophase perk tree setup. But going forward, guys, let's go into the secondary weapon, which is the plasma pistol. All right, guys, so before we get into, the main assault perk tree, let's go quickly into the plasma pistol. This is not that deep, guys, because it's not that integral to the build, but I chose the plasma pistol. It's my favorite secondary weapon, and I chose the Cathalamor Crusade top left version, the relic. In terms of perk tree, guys, I'm not going to go into that much detail like I did for the Xenophase blade, but feel free to take a snapshot again. Just going over it quickly, guys, we have Plasma Collection, we have Rapid Cooling, another Plasma Collection, Blast Radius, Perpetual Velocity, Plasma Collection, Efficient Charge, and for the relics, guys, we have Perfect Cooling and Charge Cooling. I'm excited to learn about what they're going to have for this version for the Heroic, which is going to be interesting. But going forward, guys, okay, sorry, I won't be covering too much on this, so if you need, take a snapshot, and let's get into the fun meat and potatoes of this build. So for the perk tree, guys, let's jump right into it. Now, this is not what I would run as if you want to call it a balanced assault build. Let's say you have a Thunder Hammer going. This is not what I would have. But for the Xenophase blade, and if you're going for max damage, near unlimited jump pack restoration, this will be the class perk layout for you. So let's jump into the core perk first, and we will get into also the team perk, gear perks, signature perks, and the prestige perks as well. Okay, so let's start with the first core perk, guys. I chose Overcharge. So damage from charge melee attacks increases by 25%. Now this does affect the power rake, so getting a 25% increase on top of all the other damage multipliers is really going to stack the damage up, and it's going to make that power rake very, very powerful. Now, again, if you remember what I had as my first perk for the Xenophase blade, if you had armor remaining, your damage is increased by I believe it was 10%. I chose not to use this one just because I want that increase in damage, but you can also go with this one, and it'll work well with that first perk in the Xenophase build. However, if you're going for the max damage build, like I am in this video, go for Overcharged. Moving on to the second core perk, this one here, guys, Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charge by 1. Honestly, guys, whenever a class has the ability to restore their equipment charge, I take it no matter what, unless some crazy thing is in that perk tier or that perk column. I'm going for this one. If you can run Melt-A-Bombs or crack grenades, you have, like I say in almost every video that I talk about some sort of restoration of equipment, you have unlimited nukes in your pocket, and that's so beneficial to any build. So for my second core perk, Consecutive Execution. Moving on to my last core perk, guys. Again, going for that increase in damage. I got Knowledge of the Enemy, so melee damage increases by 15% against Majoris and Extremis level enemies. Just a blanket increase, stacked with all my other increases in damage multipliers. Guys, this build is nuts. All right, so for the team perk, guys, I have Strategic Strike. So all squad members deal 20% more melee damage against extremist and terminus level enemies. Now, remember, you're pairing that with all the other damage multipliers we have. You become an absolute tank on the battlefield. If you remember, there was a perk in the Xenophase perk tree that I chose not to use, which was increase in terminus damage. And I strategically didn't use that because I knew I would get 20% right here. So I saved it for Minoris or Majoris or Extremis, and I got the terminus increase in damage right here. Again, guys, this is only the beginning of the damage multipliers. Let's get right into the gear perk, and you're going to see where this class setup really shines. All right, let's get into the first gear perk, Precision Strike. So ground pound deals 100% more damage, but its radius is reduced by 50%. Don't worry about the radius. Yes, you'll feel it, but the ground pound, the increasing of 100% for ground pound damage, stacked with all the other damage multipliers, guys, you become terrifying on the battlefield. So I highly recommend Precision Strike as your first gear perk. Moving forward, we have Zealous Blow. A ground pound kill restores jump pack charge by 10%. Now remember, this build is also near unlimited jump pack, so we have to have a perk that allows for a faster recharge of the jump pack. So for me, I chose Zealous Blow. You pair that with all the damage multipliers. If you you get a nice, beautiful ground pound on the Minoris level enemies, you can string together a bunch of kills. So you can really restore your jump pack way faster than if you were to choose something like a maneuverability. So where you get a 20% increase, just like a blanket overall. That one's really good as well. But for me, if you can string together ground pound kills, you'll get way more than 20%. So especially with all the damage multipliers, you really target those little mobs of Minoris, and you're going to be getting your jump pack, very, very often. Moving on to the third gear perk, we have Pride in Duty. So after a finisher, ground pound deals 25% more damage for 10 seconds, all right? So remember, guys, we're stacking that with all types of extra damage multipliers. For example, this one right here, ground pound deals 100%. So just in this gear column or gear section, we have 125% more damage. Guys, you need to give this Xenophase Assault build a try. It's insane. Let's move into the signature perk, and then we'll get into the prestige perks. All right, so for the signature perk, I chose Ample Ammunition. So any use of jump pack reloads the equipped ranged weapon and increases its damage by 50% for 10 seconds. Again, like I said earlier in this video, we're going for maximum damage. So I'm going to take a 50% increase in damage, even if it's just my ranged weapon. Ideally, that would have been nice if it was my melee weapon, but that would have just made this build completely off the rails. But you get an increase of 50% for the ranged weapon. Now, this one right here is also really good, Ascension. So jump pack leap deals damage to all enemies in the takeoff area. However, I find myself taking off before I even hit the enemies. So let's say there's a big mob in front of me. I'm taking off when the area is clear. So for this, I didn't really find it to be very beneficial. So I chose to get rid of this and opted for Ample Ammunition. With that said, guys, that's the perk tree. Feel free to take a screenshot. Let's get into the prestige perks now. All right, I won't go into too much detail on the prestige perks, but for the first one, guys, I have Adrenaline Boost. So after a perfectly timed parry, block, or dodge, you do not lose control upon taking heavy hits, and you cannot be knocked back for 10 seconds. So whenever there's a perk that has the ability to not be knocked back, or you cannot be knocked back, or whatever, I'm going to take that. Again, there were some other perks that I could have chose in the actual perk tree that had that, but I chose to use this one down here because I didn't want to sacrifice any damage boost. So let's move on to the second prestige perk. We have Fortitude. So we have a blanket increase in health by 15%. Then we have Practice Aim. So range damage increases by 15%. again, going for that damage, pair that with the signature perk ample ammunition. We can possibly get 50% there, and then 15% here. That's 65% increase in damage. That's insane. And then we have scramble targeting. So if you're surrounded by 5 or more enemies, you take 20% less damage from range attack. All right. So this is really the only defensive perk we have. And if you're in assault, you know that you're in the thick of it. So taking 20% less damage when you're surrounded by 5 or more, which happens all the time. You have those little minoris, even majoris. There's oftentimes more than 5. So you're going to be golden, right? You pair the two together, there's more than 5 almost all the time, right? So 20% less damage from range attacks will be beneficial, and it's a little defensive perk in your favor. And that's really it, guys. Honestly, this build slams out there. You become an absolute tank on the battlefield. I highly recommend trying this build a try. It's incredibly fun. I find the assault to be incredibly fun. It's not my main build. My main class is the bulwark or the heavy. I love those two classes, and I will forever love those two classes. However, assault is fun, all right? And this build is really fun. Give it a try. With that being said, guys, after I talk, I will leave a short video of me using this build on the actual battlefield, and you can see how powerful it really is, guys. With that being said, feel free to take a screenshot. Hopefully you like it. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this build, if you've given it a try. And guys, I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.
I'm airborne ready.